Chapter 530, the final story of the past two. A small smile appeared on Yuna's face when she heard these words. It's been a long time since someone swore to kill her, so she couldn't help but chuckle in amusement. Hee, it's been a long time since someone wanted to kill me. Just when was the last time that happened? Was it that annoying god-devouring dragon? Or maybe the leader of that world-destroying cult? Sigh, it's been so long that I'm not entirely sure about the proper order of events anymore. Tilda. The demon cultivator couldn't help but shudder a little when Yuna mentioned entities that the sect's previous ancestor had been telling him about, like they were alive only a few years ago. How long has this damned woman lived? This is ridiculous. Although he was slightly intimidated by Yuna's words, he didn't care in the end. After all, they were just empty words, and even if they were true, all that happened a long time ago, and Yuna was relatively close to her dying day, so she should be significantly weakened. For now, he was confident in his victory. He flicked his wrist, causing a huge crimson halberd to appear in his hand, and after seeing that her opponent had armed himself, Yuna grabbed the air, but before she could fully close her hand, a white sword hilt appeared out of nowhere, which quickly grew into a full-fledged massive sword. A frown appeared on the demon cultivator's face when he saw Yuna creating her weapon out of ice. Are you mocking me? Do you truly think a weapon made on the spot could handle my halberd? Yuna could only sigh deeply when she heard that comment. Sigh, sir, the world has even forgotten how I fight, huh? Well, considering neither my disciples nor children managed to learn it, it might not be too surprising that my true fighting style has been forgotten. The demon cultivator scrunched up his nose when he heard Yuna's words. Frankly, he couldn't believe that she didn't even use a proper weapon and used one made of her own ice instead. Is she trying to trick me? That is very likely, so I will have to be careful about what she is planning. Yuna could only shake her head when she saw her opponent's facial expression. Oh well, I frankly don't care whether you believe me or not. So, let's get in the proper mood, shall we? While Yuna closed her eyes and started concentrating, question marks popped up above her opponent's head. Proper mood? What is she even talking about? Moments later, Yuna reopened her eyes as an aura of utmost arrogance leaked out of her body. Junior, you dare covet this venerable one's soul? You are courting death. An awkward silence followed Yuna's outburst as the person in front of her looked at her in bewilderment. What was that just now? Venerable one? Courting death? What is she talking about? Wait, I remember. My grandfather once told me that his grandfather's grandfather said to him that old people would occasionally speak all weird. That must be it. Yuna frowned when she got no reaction to her proper greeting. What? Are you not going to answer me? Sigh, youngsters nowadays are so rude. Absolutely no manners at all. Naturally, the middle-aged man in front of her had no clue what he was even supposed to say, so Yuna simply shrugged her shoulder and pointed her blade at him. This venerable one has 7 days of lifespan left, so this venera RFCK it. The arrogance radiating out of Yuna vanished instantly as she took a more relaxed posture. So, anyway, I'll make this flashy. I'll burn my remaining lifespan to deliver one devastating attack, so good luck surviving. Although her opponent was still confused due to yet another switch in mood, he quickly analyzed Yuna's words and a massive grin appeared on his face. I see. An all-or-nothing gamble. Good, I like it. Let's do it. In fact, he didn't get the position of the strongest demonic cultivator out of sheer luck. He was a very cautious man. So, he currently had over 10 divine-level protection artifacts in his spatial ring. No matter how much power Yuna's last move had, activating 1 or 2 of these would block the attack no matter what. Yuna nodded her head in approval as she allowed her aura to burst out of her body, causing space to shake as snow started slowly descending from the skies. When he felt her power, a smirk appeared on the demon cultivator's face. As expected, she is grown old. I might not even need to use one of my protective artifacts. However, before he could taunt Yuna, her aura grew even further, causing the space to tremble and distort while a snowstorm started covering the continent they were on. He told her quite impressive. As expected of the world's strongest being. Even a mere 7 days of your life grant that much power. Seems like I misunderstood. That first power burst was only her natural aura. How frightening. I might actually need to use multiple defense artifacts for this. However, it will be worth it. Yuna shook her head as she looked at her opponent with pity. I pity your ignorance, child. While your ancestors were still eating mud on the playground, I already sat firmly on the seed of the strongest, fighting gods and divine beasts in an era far less stable than this one. Do you honestly believe this pitiful amount of power is worth 7 days of my life? That first power boost was merely me lifting the seal that prevents my presence from destroying my surroundings. The demon cultivator's eyes bulged out when he heard Yuna's words. In fact, everyone spectating the fight had similar expressions. However, most of them immediately denied Yuna's words as a lie. They couldn't believe someone could become that much more powerful than them without using a sacrificial method. Yuna saw everyone's facial expressions and could only shake her head. I see the doubt in your eyes, brats. Very well. Be honored to witness what is about to happen and burn it into your minds. Witness the strongest attack ever recorded in history. Witness what 7 days of my life are worth. Then, Yuna's aura exploded even further, causing the space around her to crack due to the sheer weight of her presence while the whole planet was engulfed in a massive storm of snow and ice. Instantly a massive thunderstorm gathered above Yuna, forming tribulation clouds as if her strength ended the heavens themselves. Unfortunately, those were frozen instantly and converted into more snow clouds. Currently, there was nothing that could oppose Yuna. Meanwhile, the demon cultivator had almost soiled his pants when Yuna unleashed her full power. Divine-grade artifacts would protect him. When he felt Yuna's aura explode, that idea turned into the equivalent of covering his body with a layer of one-layered toilet paper. There was only one choice. He had to run away. Divine Ice Sword combination style. However, he couldn't. In fact, he couldn't move at all. It felt like his whole body was encased in a layer of ice. Final stance. He trembled in fear. He couldn't help himself. In his life, he went through quite a few helpless situations, but in the end, he always pushed through somehow. But now, he could only see death. His deceased ancestor warned him never to provoke Yuna, but he simply dismissed his words. In his mind, no one would forever be invincible. Apparently, his thoughts were wrong. 1/2 end all life. Yuna slashed down her sword. Divine severance. Everyone watching felt their bodies getting cut into 1,000 pieces, and it would take them quite a bit of time to realize that Yuna had only directed her attack at a single person. The ice blade passed through the demon cultivator, instantly cutting him in 2 halves while both of the sides turned into ice statues. However, neither of the parts moved from their position, and after the situation calmed down, the case was investigated, revealing that the reason they didn't fall was because of how cold the ice statues he turned into were. Not only was space around the statues frozen, even time could not move around them, meaning that even divine sense could not get close to them. In the future, the 2 parts of the demon cultivator's body would be seen as a holy sight for cultivators as they could witness the after effects of this realm's uncontested, strongest attack. As for Yuna, after she finished her attack, she started crumbling away, turning into snow. Tilda, such a good life. I am satisfied, Tilda. Chapter 531, Another Kind of Battle. Yuna finished her story, causing Kaguya to look at her in awe. So that is what really happened. Amazing. Additionally, now that such a powerful person is here, I don't need to fear the Utsutsuki clan anymore either. Kaguya, whose head was currently resting on Yuna's lap while Yuna was combing through her hair with her hand, visibly relaxed as a sigh of relief escaped her mouth. The threat of the Utsutsuki clan one day appearing here to punish her was constantly looming above her head, which was the reason she wanted to create an army of white Zetsu. Now, she no longer cared about that. Even if they came, wouldn't Yuna just smack them to death? On the other hand, Black Zetsu was obediently sitting by the side while listening to Yuna's story with a respectful expression on his face. The previous hostility and fear were no longer present as he looked like he would worship Yuna as his ancestor at any moment. Then, Yuna opened her mouth and resumed speaking in a voice that seemed to echo through the whole mindscape despite not being very loud. Instead of telling another story of the past, a complex string of words left her mouth, talking about insanity, balance, control, and many more things. While listening to Yuna's esoteric speech, Kaguya sighed again and again as every time Yuna combed through her hair and finished a sentence, she could feel her insane thoughts diminishing. No, diminishing wasn't the correct word, as these thoughts were still there, they were just easier to control and less intrusive. Additionally, her mindscape was slowly but surely fixing itself as Yuna's voice reverberated through her mind. The muddy water covering the ground slowly receded, while the black gaseous substances seemed to disperse. Her mind was healing. After around an hour, only a vast field of grass remained, causing Kaguya to smile peacefully. Although her mindscape was pretty much empty, Kaguya didn't mind. After all, this was only the first step as she herself wasn't even sure what she enjoyed. Now that she had proper control over it, she would sculpt this place to her liking over the coming years. Well, now that that is done, what are your plans for the future, Kaguya? I want to stay by your side. Kaguya instantly answered Yuna's question, causing her face to become crimson while Yuna chuckled in amusement. Yuna patted her head, causing her to squint in pleasure, and resumed talking. That is fine with me. However, what kind of role would you like to have? Question marks popped up above Kaguya's head as she tilted her head in confusion. However, after thinking about Yuna's question for a short moment, she realized what Yuna was talking about, and a slight blush appeared on her face. Can I call you Grandma? At first, Yuna was slightly taken aback by that weird request, but after thinking about it for a moment, she shrugged her shoulders in amusement. She rarely cared how people called her, and since Kaguya's address was technically correct, at least to some degree, she simply accepted. Funnily enough, if Kaguya could call Yuna Grandma, Yuna could theoretically do the same for Kaguya. Yuna, in a first life, was the ancestor of Kaguya, while Kaguya was the ancestor of Yuna in a second life. Yuna really wondered if that would lead to some kind of interesting blood mutation if they had children. As for matters containing incest, that was a laughable argument. Their bloodlines were countless generations apart, so that wouldn't matter in the slightest. I don't mind if you call me Grandma, but that is not what I'm talking about. You know what kind of relationship I had with your ancestor, so are you interested? Kaguya froze up when she realized what Yuna was talking about. Right, she had a sexual relationship with the great ancestor. Honestly, I'm not too interested. I had sex with my previous husband before, and I honestly didn't think there was anything special about it. It was, at best, slightly pleasurable. Since he was so eager to do it, I occasionally did it with him to make him happy, but that was all there was to it. I'm sorry, but I'm not really that interested in sex. I mean, it feels decent, but I don't have any interest in having more children. Yuna raised her eyebrows when she heard that as she moved her hand and lightly moved Kaguya's head, so she was forced to look at Yuna. Did you just imply that a pathetic loser that abandoned you at the first sign of trouble would bring you the same level of pleasure as me? For some reason, a shudder went through Kaguya's spine when she saw Yuna's eyes seemingly piercing into her mind, projecting a whole lot of danger. Kaguya wasn't sure why, but yet again, she instinctively clenched her butt. Do I have to punish you, child? Before Kaguya could say anything else, Yuna lowered her head and met Kaguya's lips, shocking her quite a bit. However, the shock quickly diminished as waves of pleasure kept rolling in. What the hell is this? Aren't we just kissing? Why does it feel so amazing? While keeping her lips locked with Kaguya, Yuna lifted up her body and straddled her on her lap, giving her easy access to Kaguya's butt, resulting in a firm smack echoing through the shared mindscape. Did she just hit me? B, but it didn't feel bad at all. What's going on? Why does the pleasure keep increasing? Moments later, Yuna broke apart the kiss, causing Kaguya to whimper in frustration. Well, did that change your mind, Kaguya? However, Kaguya could barely answer, as pleasure was still flooding her body. She had never felt this good before. Yesh, Grandma Tilda. Grandma, huh? That's some kinky shit right there. Seen worse. Done worse. True. Meanwhile, Black Zetsu was obediently spectating everything that was happening with curiosity. Despite being Kaguya's will, he had developed a few unique characteristics. For example, he loved spectating fights. Although what happened in front of him wasn't a traditional fight, he was still somewhat curious. To think Mother would be defeated so easily. As expected of Yuna-sama. Chapter 532, Out of the Mindscape. Meanwhile, Hinata's gaze snapped towards Yuna and Kaguya, while a frown appeared on her face. What's wrong, Hinata? When Hinata heard Enko's question, she sighed in defeat as her shoulders slumped. It appears we have a new sister. Enko's eyes shone when she heard that as her gaze landed on Kaguya, and she licked her lips with hunger. Nice. Yuna really works fast, doesn't she? I hope she is submissive so that I can have my way with her. Tilda, I can't wait to experience what it is like to FCK an alien, hee hee. While Enko was loudly fantasizing about what she would want to do with Kaguya, Hinata could only sigh repeatedly. Although I was half expecting this to happen, she actually did it, huh? Outrageous as ever. Oh well, there is literally nothing I can do against that. Meanwhile, Lee and Guy stood next to Hinata and Enko with question marks floating above their heads. Guy-sensei, what is this about? I'm not sure, Lee, but I think we have won. Lee's eyes started shining when he heard that as he lifted his arms in excitement. Oh. I don't really get it, but our youth prevailed, Guy-sensei. Youth. That's right, Lee. Youth. Youth. Simultaneously, Naruto and Sasuke were clashing again and again as Sasuke tried to kill Kaguya while Naruto was stopping him. Stop this, you idiot. This is the perfect chance to get rid of her. Didn't you feel how powerful she is? There is no way we can do anything without the Sage Sealing Jutsu. Naruto only shook his head as he blocked another one of Susanu's arrows with a small Bijudama. As I have already said, Nasen knows what she is doing, and there is no need to interfere. Sasuke gritted his teeth as he prepared another attack, but before he could do so, he saw what he wanted to see the least. Yuna and Kaguya both stirred and opened their eyes. They might have talked for multiple hours within their mindscapes, but that only amounted to around 5 minutes in the real world. FCK. Amaterasu. Sasuke focused his gaze on Kaguya and used Amaterasu in a last-ditch effort. Although Kaguya was engulfed in black flames, she simply absorbed them without even taking a hint of damage, causing Sasuke to sweat. However, Kaguya completely ignored Sasuke and held eye contact with Yuna instead. Sasuke half expected Yuna to get killed instantly, but something completely out of his understanding happened, making his chin hit the ground. Kaguya's neutral expression morphed into a small smile as she pressed one of Yuna's arms in between her breasts while nuzzling her head against Yuna's neck. Thank you, Grandma Tilda. Understandably, Sasuke tripped and smashed headfirst into the ground when he heard Kaguya call Yuna Grandma. However, he quickly realized what was going on, so he flared his chakra. Kai. Kai. Kai Kai Kai. Nothing happened. No, this has to be a genjutsu. It has to be. Meanwhile, Kaguya looked around and took in the scenery. Now that she was no longer controlled by madness and most of her hatred was somewhat dealt with, her perception of the world was completely different. No longer did everything look twisted and bizarre, and she could actually see a plethora of vibrant colors. One of those colors was the piercing green of a pair of tight spandex suits. The people wearing them were constantly yelling youth while doing push-ups, so Kaguya swiftly decided to ignore whatever was going on there. Humans are such weird creatures. Those are humans, right? Her gaze continued wandering, and she quickly noticed one of her children's reincarnations. He was laughing like a maniac while screaming "Kai" at the top of his lungs. Yet again, Kaguya decided that she wanted nothing to do with that. Next, her eyes landed on the other reincarnation of her children, who was looking at her in curiosity with not a sliver of hostility in his eyes. "You truly didn't want to fight me, did you?" Naruto only shrugged his shoulders as he answered Kaguya's question. "As long as you had agreed to deactivate the worldwide genjutsu, I would have been totally fine with not fighting." Kaguya nodded her head as her eyes gazed at the moon. Moments later, her Thirda radiated massive amounts of chakra, turning the moon into a Rinnesh Ringen yet again. This time, she would use the moon to dispel all the genjutsu that were previously cast. Naruto smiled and nodded his head. "Thanks for that. So should I call you Kaguya or sister-in-law?" Kaguya's face got a slightly red hue as she started glaring at Naruto, making him chuckle. "What? That's a legitimate question." Kaguya glared for a few seconds longer before her blush intensified. She pushed Yuna's even deeper between her breasts and answered Naruto. "Sister-in-law." Naruto chuckled in amusement as he gave Yuna a thumbs up. "As expected of you, Nei-san." Although he teased her, Kaguya immediately liked Naruto. Despite what Hagoromo might have told him about her, he kept an open mind and approached the situation without prejudice. She could respect that. Finally, Kaguya's eyes landed on the two women who were currently walking toward her. She could immediately tell that those two probably had a rather intimate relationship. Something she sought after as well. Let's see, one of them has a Byakugan, so she is likely one of my descendants as well. Although I feel some hostility from her, I have a pretty good idea where that is coming from. Despite that, I'll keep a neutral opinion of her for now. And the last one, why is she looking at me like a predator? Despite giving off that feeling, I feel no hostility at all. How weird. MHH. What's that? While observing Enka, Kaguya noticed the snake hanging off of her body. That snake is purely made out of natural energy. The only existence I know of that is like that is the Jubi, and that's just a mindless beast. However, that snake is currently observing me with curiosity and is clearly sentient. In fact, its eyes hold quite a bit of intelligence. As she thought that, the snake, Akane, seemed to have made up her mind about Kaguya and decided to wave at her with her tail, surprising Kaguya. Okay, I already like that snake. Chapter 533, Sasuke's Third Try. Hinata approached Kaguya with a frown on her face, causing Kaguya to slightly raise her guard, despite doubting that Hinata could do anything to her. Hinata stood in front of Kaguya, and after looking at her up and down, she sighed deeply before a wry smile appeared on her face. "Oh well, I guess there is nothing that can be done. Since we'll be staying together for a long time, we might as well get along." The name is Hinata. Kaguya couldn't help but be surprised at how easily Hinata let go of her grudge. Kaguya assumed that she was part of Yuna's harem, so she didn't expect her to drop her hostility against someone who wanted to join so easily. "Hello, I'm Kaguya Utsutsuki. Nice to meet you too, and I hope we will get along from now on." In the few hours that Yuna talked with Kaguya, her mindset had changed drastically. Not only was she no longer constantly bombarded by the chakra fruit's corruption, making her more easygoing, but she also had a drastic change regarding how she looked at other people. It turns out that hearing story after story of someone getting their lineage extinguished due to acting arrogantly is quite the excellent medicine to quell someone's arrogance. Therefore, she had no trouble speaking with Hinata as an equal. He, the name's Anko, nice to meet you. Tilda say, could you tell me what gives you more pleasure? Is it S or M? While Hinata facepalmed at that question and Yuna chuckled in amusement, Kaguya tilted her head in confusion. She didn't know what that meant. I don't know what S or M means, but as for pleasure... Kaguya thought about it for a moment before a slight blush appeared on her face. It felt really amazing when Grandma kissed me, he. Hinata and Anko glanced at each other, pity clearly visible in their eyes. If just kissing was what Kaguya considered to give her a lot of pleasure, she would probably melt rather quickly as soon as things got more steamy. Okay, I'll accept that answer for now. Anyway, what is your favorite sexual position? Oi. What the hell, Anko? While Hinata was a little outraged by Anko's ridiculous questions, Kaguya tilted her head yet again while a bit of blush appeared on her face when sex was mentioned. Sexual positions? Are there more than one? It felt like a lightning strike just hit Yuna, Hinata, and Anko when they heard Kaguya's answer. Simultaneously, they looked forward to her ahegao face when Yuna inevitably pushed her over the edge. Anyway, while Yuna's group was chatting, Karen slowly approached the little gathering with somewhat shaky steps. Most people were still unconscious due to being trapped in a genjutsu for a long time, but Karen already made it back up and instantly wandered towards Yuna's location. Naturally, Yuna noticed Karen approaching them and pointed her out for Kaguya. Another harem member is coming. She's called Karen, and if you ever feel like you want to try out some humiliating punishments, then she is your go-to person. Karen, this is Kaguya, an alien from space. She's just become part of my harem. Kaguya looked at Yuna in confusion, not understanding why she would be willing to have someone from her harem humiliated. However, Karen's reaction shed at least some light on the situation. Tilda, as expected of Yuna-sama, a tongue lashing before I fully reach you. So exciting, Tilda. As for Yuna's second sentence, she mentally answered it with, it's Yuna, so it's fine. Meanwhile, Kaguya could understand that Karen likes getting insulted, but not why that was the case. She couldn't understand how someone would be happy about being insulted. While Kaguya pondered on that mystery, Karen straightened her back as a serious expression appeared on her face. However, I want to make one thing clear. Yuna-sama is the only one who was allowed to humiliate me. Well, I'm fine with Anko-sama doing it as well. Hinata's fine as well, I guess. Well, I haven't spent much time with but he tilde. Creepy laughter came out of Karen's mouth as she imagined all kinds of kinky scenes. After another fit of creepy giggles, Karen's eyes landed on Kaguya and observed her with intrigue. I wonder what it feels like to get spanked by an alien. Although she only murmured these words under her breath, the others could still hear her, causing them to smile wryly. So much for not everyone being allowed to humiliate her. Meanwhile, Sasuke finally stopped screaming Kaya like a madman and regained his focus. He looked at Yuna's back as a dangerous gleam passed through his eyes. Surely, I will be able to do it now. I was granted the power of a god. No matter how ridiculous her fight against Madara was, I can best her now. I can do it. If I ask her for a one-on-one fight, I'm sure no one will interfere. As for that persistent Kaguya illusion, I'll just ignore it. Sasuke lifted his foot and took his first step toward Yuna, and as soon as he did, Yuna's head snapped in his direction, causing a shiver to go down his spine. Yuna's gaze met his, and Sasuke immediately felt like he was just plunged into the abyss as two madness-filled eyes seemed to hover above him. Sasuke. A shudder went through Sasuke's spine when he heard Yuna calmly stating his name. Are you sure you want to do this? Sasuke felt like ice was covering his whole body as Yuna's emotionless words washed past him. A fight to the death. Sasuke's whole body shivered in fear as the only thing he could see right now was a giant pair of piercing purple eyes that were looking down on him. "Do you wish for me to grant you?" He felt an ice-cold hand grasping his neck, slowly wringing his life out. He wanted to free himself from the hand, but he couldn't move his body. Not even his Rinnegan was usable. Death? Suddenly, everything returned to normal, except for Sasuke screeching in absolute terror before coughing out some blood and fainting. Yuna gave him another glance while wiping away a trickle of blood flowing out off the corner of his mouth. Shitty small fry. Why didn't that kill him? Because it was a question and not an order. Okay, and why didn't you kill him? Because I saw the good in him. Bullshit. Because it would be morally wrong. Don't even try to go in that direction. We both know that the needle of your moral compass is made out of ice instead of metal. Fine, he is just too fun to mess with. That sounds more like it. Chapter 534, The Forgotten One. While Yuna's group was endlessly chatting with each other, other people started slowly waking up from their slumber, and a few minutes later, the battlefield-spanning communication array was back in business. Inoicha, the array's central controller, immediately decided to contact the person who was undoubtedly responsible for whatever happened. Contact Yuna Uzumaki. We need to know what happened. Yes. As soon as they located Yuna's position, they almost soiled their pants due to the utter absurd amount of chakra one of the people next to Yuna had. Who the hell is that? Is it an enemy? I'm not sure, but since they don't seem to be fighting, this is a good chance to contact Yuna. Moments later, Yuna felt someone trying to talk to her telepathically, and as soon as she realized who it was, she allowed the connection to form. Yuna, what is going on? Oh? If it isn't my brother's father-in-law. A lot of things happened, but the war is over. We have won. Although Inoichi gnashed his teeth at being called father-in-law, he still kept the conversation going. Naturally, he was happy that the war was supposedly over, but there were still other things to talk about. We can feel a colossal chakra signature right next to you. Is that an enemy or an ally? She's an ally. Her name is Kaguya, and she is an alien that was sealed inside the moon. Huh? What kind of nonsense are you t? Oh, and she is the mother of the legendary sage of the 6 paths. What the F? And she joined my harem. Inoicha paused for a moment as his thoughts came to a standstill. However, he was an expert on the mind, so Yuna's absurdities couldn't daze him for too long. He knew exactly what he had to do. Great, so we have won. I'll immediately spread that message throughout the whole army. He suppressed the unhealthy information he had just received and sealed it away in the depths of his mind. All that remains of what Yuna just told him about Kaguya is she's an ally. Her name is Kaguya. Anyway, since the war is over, what happened to the puppet master, Obito Uchiha? I assumed he was killed. An awkward expression appeared on Yuna's face as she struggled not to laugh out loud when Inoichi called Obito the puppet master. Frankly, she had no idea what had happened to him. Give me a moment. Although it's a long story, he turned out to be just a pawn of a pawn of a pawn. Anyway, I'm sure his body is somewhere in the vicinity. While Inoichi was dazed due to the supposed mastermind being nothing more than a pawn, Yuna spread her senses to find Obito's location. She couldn't help but enjoy how much she could sense now that she got back a small part of her original cultivation. Obviously, he noticed Madara's presence as well, but as the battle escalated, it became harder and harder to sense what was going on, so he had no clue what exactly occurred. Meanwhile, Yuna found Obito, and he was surprisingly still alive. Well, barely. Yuna pointed toward his half-dead body while looking at Naruto with a stern expression. Naruto, haven't I taught you not to leave your toys lying all over the ground? What the hell is that? At first, Naruto had no clue why Yuna suddenly started scolding him, but after sharpening his sense and looking toward the location Yuna was pointing at, a dangerous glint passed through his eyes as a vicious smile appeared on his face. However, that facial expression quickly morphed into one filled with guilt as he gave Yuna puppy-dog eyes. "Sorry, Nei-san, I'll put it away right now." Yuna, who seemed to be swayed by Naruto's puppy-dog eyes, nodded her head in acknowledgement. "Fine, but this is the last time." Naruto's vicious smile returned as he nodded his head and moved towards the half-dead Obito. Finally, it was time to avenge his parents' death. While Naruto was walking toward Obito's body in excitement, Yuna rekindled the conversation with Inoicha. "Okay, Obito is here, and he will be dead soon, so this war is 100% over." Although Inoicha still didn't understand everything that was going on, he still sighed in relief when Yuna confirmed that the war was over. Although Yuna loved creating chaos, she was not someone who would mess around with something this important. Well, at least not if it could potentially cost innocent lives. Moments later, Naruto arrived near Obito's unmoving body, resulting in him opening his eyes. By now, he didn't even have the chakra to sustain his Sharingan, so both of his eyes were pure black now. "Naruto, huh? Are you here to mock me? Mock this pathetic me that has been tricked and used time after time for the sake of others? No, you have been mocked enough." A kunai appeared in Naruto's hand, which he swiftly tossed at Obito's head, piercing through it and impaling his brain, killing him pretty much instantly. Eerie silence covered Naruto's surroundings as he closed his eyes to properly feel what it was like to finally get his revenge on the person who killed his parents. Frankly, he was not expecting to feel like he currently did. Well, how is it? What does it feel like to finally get your revenge? It feels... Naruto clenched and unclenched his fist while looking at the unmoving body of Obito. Truly, he never expected it to be like this. F-sking amazing. Huh? Kurama knew what humans usually felt after they got their desired revenge. They would feel empty and quickly burn out as their life's goal vanished. However, Naruto was different. He never lived for the sake of revenge alone. He had other goals and dreams he wanted to fulfill, so rather than him no longer having any plans for the future after he got what he wanted, it felt more like he managed to tick off one of the points on his to-do list. Ha ha ha, getting revenge feels amazing. Well, at least you didn't start acting all broody, so I guess I'll count this as a win. Chapter 535, Accusations. And just like that, the war was over. Although there were still groups of white Zetsu roaming around, they were just a bunch of headless chickens without the support of the Ida Tensei. Closely following Obito's death, Kaguya released all the tailed beasts trapped inside her, allowing them to roam freely. Yuna gave all of them a method to contact her for safety measures. It would be rather silly to set them free just for someone else to recapture them. Some might argue or even demand that the tailed beasts are returned to the shinobi villages, but Yuna will politely deny those requests. Technically, the tailed beasts could be considered Kaguya's grandchildren, but neither side felt that to be the case, so they easily parted ways. Well, if I were to marry Kaguya, wouldn't I be your grandmother-in-law, Kurama? I do not accept such a relationship. Buzz off. Do not talk to your grandmother like that, young man. How do you manage to get more annoying every day? Hee, I'm just that good. Anyway, the war was over, and there were surprisingly few causalities, which were mainly accredited to multiple powerful individuals that kept the reanimated people away, allowing average shinobi to fight the white Zetsus freely. Funnily enough, all of these individuals had at least some connection with Yuna and the Uzumaki clan, showcasing how significant their contributions towards this victory were. Naturally, the victory needed to be celebrated, so quite a lot of people were already making preparations to hold a massive nation-spanning festival. Instead of being exhausted from the war, people were excited as morale was at an all-time high. While the 5 Cage were watching over the logistics, a flustered messenger burst into the room, causing the Cage to frown. What is going on? The messenger shrank back due to A's glare but quickly regained his bearing. "TT the D daimyos are they?" A rolled his eyes at the stuttering messenger, wondering what he was making such a fuss about. "So the daimyos are here. Guess they want to meddle in the logistics of this festival. They'll probably try to make a professor. They are dead." While A was coming up with his own theory, the messenger managed to stammer out the whole story, making the 5 cage freeze up. Moments later, their heads snapped toward a certain direction, where a woman was lazing around on a couch while stroking the hair of a white-skinned woman with horns. Initially, all of them wanted to know who that horned woman was and why the third eye on her forehead had the same pattern as the moon during the infinite Tsukuyomi, but after getting too close to the couch, she started glaring at them with such intensity that all 5 of them dropped the matter. Yuna felt multiple gazes land on her, so she diverted her attention away from Kaguya, causing her to frown. "Yes? Is there something on my face?" Tsunade sighed deeply as she started rubbing the bridge of her nose with one hand while taking a sip from a hip flask with the other. "Yuna, did you assassinate the daimyos?" Yuna chuckled in amusement at that question and directed her gaze at the messenger. "Well, that is certainly something I would do, but let's gather some more information first. Hey, messenger, when were they killed? You should have an approximate time, right?" Yes. They died around 4 hours ago." Yuna simply shrugged her shoulders when she heard that, acting like she was just declared innocent. "I was fighting Madara 4 hours ago." "Sorry, but your accusations are ridiculous." I could only scoff when he heard Yuna's excuse. "And what would stop you from just sending a clone to do the deed?" Yuna scoffed in disdain when she heard A's words. "You assuming that a single clone can break into the highly secured place that hosts the nation's most important people aside, do you honestly think I had the leisure to divert even a sliver of my chakra to something else while fighting Madara?" A's face scrunched up as he considered Yuna's words. Although he could only watch the fight remotely, that was certainly not a fight where one of the participants had any wiggle room to spare. Nevertheless, he couldn't believe that Yuna was innocent. In fact, all the other cage were of the same opinion. Well, I would take Yuna's side if it came to a conflict, despite thinking she was guilty. Before things could be discussed further, the door opened again, allowing a middle-aged man and his 2 guards to enter. Surprisingly, the man wore the Fire Daimyo's official robe. He arrogantly let his gaze wander around the room before landing on Yuna. "I declare Yuna Uzumaki guilty of killing my father and his fellow daimyos." All heads, even the ones of his 2 guards, snapped towards the middle-aged man, while Yuna couldn't help but chuckle in amusement. The 5 cage had cold sweat flowing down their backs. Even if they somehow got a confession out of Yuna, they would at best ask her for some form of compensation, as that would only be between them. However, now that things have become official, the punishment for Yuna's crime will be: "You 2 arrest her. For the act of killing a daimyo, she will be arrested and executed. The death penalty." However, would Yuna really meekly accept that? That Yuna? While 4 of the cage simply wore ugly expressions, Tsunade was sweating up a little puddle underneath her as her whole body was trembling. She took out her hip flask and emptied it in a few big gulps. Although the familiar burning sensation in her throat calmed her down a little, she was still far from being done. "I'm sorry, grandfather. It seems like Konoha, no, the land of fire, will perish during my rule." Meanwhile, the 2 guards looked at their lord like he had just grown a second head. "Arrest her? That Yuna Uzumaki who changed the terrain while fighting Madara Uchiha in a 100-meter-tall chakra construct. How are we supposed to arrest her? Since when is suicide part of our job description?" At the same time, a broad smile appeared on Yuna's face as she noticed a few more weak chakra signatures approaching this very roan. "I love it when a plan works out. Are you sure you weren't aiming for world domination?" "You, no. That's so third-rate." Chapter 536, Politics. Nah, bribery. The middle-aged man glared at Yuna in disdain. He had hated her for quite a while now due to her not knowing her place. He had set multiple missions to Konoha that demanded Yuna to guard him on different occasions, but she always ignored all of them. In fact, that one wasn't even Yuna's fault, as Tsunade tossed requests like that into the garbage bin as soon as she received them. Yuna guarding a pompous noble. Sure, Tsunade might as well directly send assassins after him. The middle-aged man frowned due to his guard not capturing Yuna. Didn't you hear my order, capture? Huh? He turned around to scold his guards, but they were nowhere to be seen, causing Yuna to chuckle in amusement. The moment the order to capture her was given, the duo glanced at each other and immediately legged it. Can't really praise their loyalty, but at least they are smart. Guess I'll hire them. Isn't loyalty the thing you care about the most? True, but this matter is a little different. I'm pretty sure that if I had attacked Fatsa here, they would have willingly laid down their lives to protect him, but that retard actually ordered them to attack me, which is nothing but a death sentence. In fact, if you were to look at the situation from a different perspective, running away was the smartest choice for those two to protect their lord. After all, if they attacked me, I might have not only retaliated against them, but against their lord as well. That's quite the twisted logic. Ha ha ha, it's mine, after all. Well, leaving the matter of your guards aside, under what authority do you plan to execute me? I am the matriarch of one of Konoha's clans and an elite jonin, after all. The middle-aged man put the matter of his guards aside and looked at Yuna in ridicule. Isn't that obvious? It's under my authority, the daimyo of the Land of Fire. Yuna's eyes widened in surprise as she nodded her head in understanding. So it's like that. The previous daimyo died only 4 hours ago, and there is already a new one. That's quite the impressive spade. The middle-aged man puffed out his chest when he heard Yuna's words that practically reeked of sarcasm that went straight over his head. It's only natural for me to become the next daimyo. After all, I'm the previous one's oldest son. Yuna almost burst out laughing when she heard that. A king gets killed, and the next ruler is peacefully chosen within under 4 hours. That is not very likely. Additionally, the previous daimyo had 3 wives, 8 concubines, and over 20 children. It is clear that the idiot in front of Yuna simply assumed he would take over due to being the oldest child. Geez, I wonder if there is a person that falsely advises him about stuff like that. Tilda. Sigh. Moments later, the door opened yet again, allowing a young man that appeared to be around 20 years old to enter the room. He was followed by a small group of lavishly clothed youths that looked more like hooligans than nobles. However, when the middle-aged man saw the person who had just entered the room, a deep frown appeared on his face. What are you doing here, brother? Ah, I finally found you, eldest brother. You stormed out of the room as soon as father's death was announced, so you missed the rest of the announcement. It turns out that my father left behind a will and declared me as his successor. So, I'm here to get my official garment back that you pocketed illegally. The middle-aged man staggered backward when he heard these words. Nonsense. You are lying. Why would father choose a little brat like you over me? The young man chuckled in amusement as he shrugged his shoulders. Ma, you know, I managed to settle multiple really lucrative deals with the Uzumaki clan and coordinated them perfectly. After seeing all that Monkoff my skills in ordering people and overseeing them, he acknowledged me as a worthy successor. No. That's impossible. I'm the new daimyo. No one can take that away from me. I'm the oldest son. My advisor told me that would be the case. Yeah, whatever. Guards, arrest him. As soon as that order left the young man's mouth, 2 shinobi appeared next to the middle-aged man and dragged him out of the room while he was screaming bloody murder, causing the young man to chuckle in amusement. Next, his eyes landed on Yuna, but before he said anything, he raised his hand, causing one of his followers who was about to talk to shut his mouth again. Ah, my goddess Tilda, it's been a long time. As you requested, I became the new daimyo of the Land of Fire, so please teach me more knowledge about what it means to be a proper young master. Since you gave me a glimpse all these years ago, I simply couldn't stop learning what it truly means to be a young master, but I'm currently stuck. Please advise me. Yuna chuckled in amusement and was just about to speak when another person entered the room. As soon as he saw Yuna, he started rubbing his hands together like a merchant and walked towards her. Greetings, Yuna Dono. As we have previously discussed, I became the daimyo of the Land of Wind, so about those debts I have. Before he could finish speaking, yet another man entered the room, and as soon as he saw Yuna, greed appeared in his eyes. Yuna Dono. I fulfilled our deal regarding the matter of the daimyo of the Land of Water, so about that exclusive alcohol contra. Another one entered the room. Yuna Dono, I've dealt with that daimyo matter, so when can you deliver? And even more people stormed the room. Yuna Dono, Yuna Dono. Yunadu. As one big shot after the other entered the room, the 5 had cold sweat flowing down their backs as they shared a single thought. How many people in high positions does she have under her thumb? Chapter 537, The Final Move. Just like that, Yuna was declared innocent of all crimes regarding the accusation of killing multiple daimyos and nobles. And moments later, the convenient scapegoat, Akatsuki, was declared the organization responsible. Naturally, not all nobles were stupid and blinded by pride and greed, so a few of the people present were pretty much certain that Yuna killed these people. However, why would they say anything about that? They might have never seen a battlefield, but most of them would rather not have their armies fight a 100-meter-tall giant that could level mountains within seconds, and they certainly wouldn't want such a being to appear in the middle of their capital. Additionally, all of them reaped benefits from this, so why complain? Although all of them were happy, they also realized that it could have easily been them who Yuna got rid of, making them cautious of her. Some of them planned to secretly get rid of her before smiling wryly at their own thoughts. Get rid of her? Sure, that's easy. They only had to hire around 3 people at the god of shinobi's level of strength. Easy. With that thought in mind, most of the people present decided to simply not bother Yuna while living a good life. A while later, it was time for the festivities to start, but before that could happen, it was time for another speech. Yet again, Yuna stood on top of a pedestal in front of thousands of people, but unlike the previous time, most of them seemed to be in a daze, not really knowing what to do with themselves. Naturally, it was not scheduled for Yuna to hold this speech, but no one stopped her this time. Yuna's gaze wandered over the crowd and immediately understood what was happening. She spread her arms wide open and started speaking with a bombastic voice that seemed to echo loudly throughout the gathering, making everyone hear her clearly. We have won this war. Yuna's loud voice got a lot of people out of their daze, and a few seconds later, the first shinobi started cheering, quickly followed by some more, until the whole gathering consisted of shinobi that were roaring in joy. Most of them hadn't even fully realized that the war was over. They were trapped inside a powerful genjutsu, and someone told them that the war was over as soon as they woke up. It was like telling someone who was still half asleep something essential, but a severer version of that. Only now did they manage to get out of their daze. Kurama, this will be disgusting, so you may not want to listen. Pa, as if it could be this bad. Okay, I warned you. Fellow shinobi. No. Fellow humans, this victory was only possible due to the combined efforts of all of us. That wasn't too bad. Despite our misgivings with the shinobi of other countries, we stood firm together as one united front, not just as shinobi, but as comrades. As brothers and sisters in arms. I'm feeling a little sick. This war wasn't just won due to our skill and tactics. We defended humanity because we trusted in our comrades and fought to the bitter end. While Kurama's stomach problems were getting more intense, the crowd was heating up as Yuna painted them a picture of bitter enemies uniting to defeat a superior foe, making their blood pump. This war was won due to our united strength, our unity, our camaraderie and gag. The love for our nation, for humanity. Hurls. The crowd went wild as everyone cheered for their victory, which all of them were totally responsible for. That was disgusting. Power of love, baby. Did you die and another person took over your body? Hee, nope, and I'm about to prove that. Now, it's finally time for the last step to truly end this whole incident. Question marks popped up above most people's heads as they wondered what Yuna was talking about, while a few others assumed she was talking about the festival. Contrary to what everyone was expecting, she clapped her hands together and flared her chakra, resulting in quite a few people putting up their guard. Uzumaki divine pranking style, ultimate move, supreme celestial cake descends from the heavens. At first, no one knew what was going on, but since Yuna said something about the heavens, more and more people looked up, causing them to go into a daze. You have got to be shitting me. No one knew who said that, but most people agreed to these words as the clouds parted, revealing a colossal cake flying down from the sky, approaching their position. Oenoki's eyes bulged when he saw the familiar yet unfamiliar technique. I didn't get a chance to shine against Madara, but this is my chance. I will make it lighter and stop it. Without a moment of hesitation, Oenoki shot into the sky towards the cake, causing nearby shinobi to cheer him on. He was only a few meters away from the cake, so he quickly activated his jutsu. Earth-style, super light W. Splat. Oenoki flew straight into the cake and vanished. Well, this wasn't a massive boulder, so he obviously couldn't just grab it. While many people were grieving over Oenoki's demise, many people sent their hopeful glances at Naruto. Since he could keep up with Madara and the rest, they assumed that he might be able to do something about this. When Naruto saw everyone's expectations, a serious expression appeared on his face, giving everyone hope. Moments later, he disappeared from his position and reappeared next to Ino, grabbing her waist. Sorry, Dad. Just before Naruto teleported again, Ino said these words to her father, and moments later, they reappeared next to Haku, whose waist Naruto grabbed as well. Sorry about that, Zab of father. Just like Ino did to her father, Haku directed a few words at Zabuza before vanishing as well. This time, he didn't reappear in the vicinity, making the people realize what was going on. Damn, he ditched us. With Oenoki and Naruto gone, the gathered people could only feel despair as the gigantic cake approached their position. Madness filled Yuna's eyes as she spread her arms in glee. Let them eat cake. Splat. Fintilda. Chapter 538, author note plus a little rant. Well, first of all, holy shit, I actually finished this. I mean, don't get me wrong, I plan to finish my fic from the start, but I'm pretty sure that most writers on this side intend to finish their story when they start. Considering how many stories rest in eternal hiatus and how few have a proper ending, it's relatively clear that that rarely happens. Anyway, what will happen now? First of all, I'll take a month-long break. I have my holidays all planned and need some general relaxation time. I will probably post a few of the planned Make It side story chapters that will give a glimpse into what happens after the war. Additionally, I will use the time to get a general outline of what I will do with my next story. Yuna in Bleach, name pending. I already have a rough outline of how I want to do this, but I won't spoil anything for now. However, I plan to change things up a little with my new fic. First of all, I plan to actually have advanced chapters all the time, not like how it was with this fic where I only occasionally had a few of them. Additionally, writing a chapter every day is too stressful, so I'll be changing to a one-per-week schedule of longer chapters. All in all, you will get about the same word count a week. Next, a little message for all those lovely people out there that threatened to drop the story every time something happens that they don't like. Go FCK yourself. Seriously, what is wrong with some people? The most prominent example in my story is the introduction of another reincarnator, Hisoka. People were 100k words in by that point. Imagine stopping reading a story you invested multiple hours into because a single character that wasn't even mentioned up until this point and has a single trait you don't like, being reincarnated. Laughable. Anyway, let's go to the next point, which is pretty much word novel com exclusive, the trolls. Usually, I wouldn't even mention them, since I know that attention is the only thing that gets them hard, but I doubt someone who wants to troll me would read all the way through my story, so here we go. Most of you probably didn't even notice too much since comments using offensive words get auto-deleted to some degree, but I can still see their comments in my inbox, which is a great system. Anyway, having your inbox cluttered with garbage is rather annoying. I once even had a guy that would leave 2 to 3 negative comments per chapter up to like chapter 70 XD. Imagine waking up in the morning with around 200 stupid comments in your inbox. Anyway, since I ignored all of their posts, they finally decided to give up. Sorry, no orgasm for you. Oh yeah, on a side note, getting someone angry is not trolling, it's called being a dick. Now, I will proceed to get myself cancelled. I don't understand why people look at relationship issues between young teens so critically. Yeah, I just said that. Anyway, since I can already hear the police sirens in the background, I might as well explain what I meant by that before they put me behind bars. Readers don't even twitch their eyebrows when a 7-year-old is sent to a battlefield to slaughter other shinobi. I don't remember exactly which fic it was, but there was basically a scene in it where a 9-year-old Kushina kissed the 7-year-old NC, and everyone was going full herder. Like, calm down, people, it's not like they were HL'ing HNDS. Alright, time for some shoutouts. I will obviously miss like 90% of the people I wanted to give a shoutout to, but here we go anyway. First of all, shoutouts to all of my Patreons. Your donations helped me fuel my alco. Cough made it possible for me to get a few things I wouldn't have usually gotten, including the awesome book cover. Anyway, here we go. Sleeper Moonfox, Cyber Crisis, Shader Mankey, Axel Gerard, Exhaustera, Killian Murphy, Glitchimble, Oscar Servin, Jonathan Lutz, Fish, Name Not Found, Hugo Holly, Library, Eddie Yoon, Petra Pan, Chris Rose, Christian Jeffress, Timotheus, Dennis Dono, Guilherme Castro, Corrupt Zion, Jeffrey Forsgren, Ragnar Dracula, Daniel Helene, Renee, Richard Darden, Will Mickey Day, Jonah Bonish, Tarlos, Akir Iman, Jacob Hips, That Guy, Sheranor, Ekum Deep Bra, Dane Bailey, Ched Jarvis, James Wangal, Luke, Other, CF Zagi, Vivian Sullivan, Solzimsha, Judd, Demigod, Evil Smirk, The Forgotten King, Sarvin, Samuel Polluck, John Amara, Scarlet Menace, Dan, Jose Sintrin, Kevin Choi, Weird World, Dante Brady, Tyler H., Andrew Ha, Raken, Quellick, Kuroka, Legarate, Black Elements, Anton Kozlov, Tyrell Bentley, GAYDOLFGLITTER, Darian Fields, Shira Kira, Fbog. Jo is wrong. You haven't even transformed yet. And, as to emphasize that point, Sakura wiggled her butt, feeling something hard pressing into it. Yes, that was precisely where Sasuke's problems lay. That damn transformation. Initially, Sasuke and Sakura's new relationship had basically no chemistry at all. While Sakura seemed to be obsessed with Sasuke merely for the sake of being obsessed with him, Sasuke didn't care much about Sakura either and only agreed to dating because he might as well give it a try. Anyway, they quickly had their first time, as shinobi usually would do things earlier rather than later, and their first time was okay. However, things changed a few weeks later when Sasuke's seal randomly activated while he was doing it with Sakura. At first, things became incredibly awkward, and then things became incredibly hot. From that day on, the duo started F-skiing like rabbits, with Sasuke maintaining his female form while doing it. Anyway, as good as those things felt, he was still a man. He still had his dignity. Well, he felt like he lost quite a bit of that dignity yesterday when Sakura was pounding him with a strap-on, resulting in Sasuke spreading his lower lips while wiggling his butt and begging Sakura for more. That was actually the main reason why Sasuke wasn't doing so well right now. He felt that significant parts of his dignity were shattered. Well, could we do it normally today? You know, without the transformation. Sakura was slightly surprised by Sasuke's request but simply shrugged her shoulders. Sure, I don't mind. However, Sasuke sighed in relief when Sakura agreed to his request, while an unknown feeling overcame him as she continued speaking. I actually went to the Uzumaki compound earlier, where I met Yuna. When I told her that we were dating, she asked me if I knew about your transformation issues, and after confirming it, she taught me a new jutsu. Sasuke couldn't help but shudder when he heard Yuna's name. He was just about to open his mouth, hoping he could stop Sakura from doing whatever freaking jutsu Yuna taught her, but it was already too late. Fudanari no jutsu. Sakura heard someone complaining about her not using the full jutsu name, but she ignored that, as her panties were slowly bulging out, them not being made to hold what was now within them. Sasuke looked dumbfounded as Sakura slowly got what she shouldn't have, causing his face to flush crimson. No, it wasn't just his face that was blushing, his whole body was slowly turning red as his breast grew bigger and his waist grew thinner. And after around 2 seconds, a thin tail with a small heart at its tip grew out of Sasuke's lower back. Succubus has returned. Although Sakura was surprised by Sasuke suddenly transforming, seeing the 2 large red mounds jiggling underneath her, she couldn't help but lick her lips in excitement as her newly gained penis started to harden, resulting in it popping out of her underwear. Sakura slightly moved so that her dick was hovering just above Sasuke's breasts, throwing a shadow on his face. Well, it ain't gonna suck itself, Satsuki. Satsuki licked her lips as she inspected the meat stick hovering in front of her. Slowly but steady, she lifted her head and approached it while her mouth slowly opened. Needless to say, Satsuki's pride was pretty much shattered that evening.